I feel good. I knew that I would not. So good, so good. I got it.
Welcome back. This is the Prima Pediatrics Healthcare Hour on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS, and this is Dr. Feildman. When we last left, we were talking about my personal experience in understanding how Dr. Wakefield could have possibly gotten away with falsifying his results, getting them published in a prestigious medical journal, and then been found out. When I was in 7th grade, I did this science project, and when we got a deformed chicken out of it, because I had injected insulin into the eggs when it was in gestation, we took it to Dr. Donald Pickman, who was the head of research at Children's Hospital of Detroit in those days. And that was many, many years ago. I will not tell you how far back it was. But anyway, he said we needed to sacrifice the chick to do tissue studies. And I, in all of my 7th grade, 11-and-a-half-year-old mind, said, but what if it's just a genetic problem and has nothing to do with the insulin? Shouldn't we try to breed the chick and see if their offspring have it rather than just destroy it? And he says, oh, no, we have to do tissue studies. So he took the chick and did tissue studies. And what the chick had is something called Klippel-Feil syndrome, which is a fusion of all the cervical vertebrae. In other words, couldn't move his neck. And he looked like a little hunchback chicken. It was very cute. Anyway.
I'm glad you enjoy his misery.
Yeah, well, I mean, he wasn't miserable. He didn't know any better. Anyway, so he sacrificed him and went ahead to publish a paper on it without ever acknowledging my contribution whatsoever, which ticked me off when I was a little kid. And, I forgot about it and went ahead. And in high school, when I was about 16, and I was continuing to do science research, believe it or not, I read an article in the Detroit News, that was the newspaper of the day, that Dr. Donald Pickman has been jailed for fraud because it turns out that Donald Pickman had never even gotten a PhD. He had never gone to college. He'd only completed high school, and he falsified all of his papers to get this job. And he was on federal charges because he had NIH grants from the government that had to be done. His wife didn't know and divorced him.
Wow.
And he sat in jail for the next 20 years.
How long did he hold that position for where he was?
He was in his position for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
And that's not even counting all the ladder that he climbed to get to that
Right,
place.
but evidently he never climbed the ladder of college and PhD.
Well, I mean, he started halfway up the ladder.
Yeah. Well, he started halfway up, and I guess he lost the bottom rung.
Yeah.
But when I read that, I looked up and said to my mother, look at this. And I pointed it out, and she says, oh, my goodness. And I said, I told you we should not have sacrificed that chick. So with that background, when I heard about the Wakefield controversy, I said,
You knew.
Okay, I can believe that.
Wow.
Because, unfortunately, there are frauds in science.
Oh, yeah.
However, they are few and far between. What is a bigger problem is the gullibility of people to believe those who are fraudulent.
Mm-hmm.
That is the big problem. And to this day, we have a number of celebrities who go around touting that you should not immunize their children. And these people have actually caused the deaths of numbers of children and adults because of this. Because parents have stopped immunizing because they're so concerned. We've lost kids. We've lost over 10 children to measles in the last 5 years in Los Angeles.
Wow.
And that is inexcusable. And that is what the problem is. To the extent, and I see it every day, not just in my professional life where I have to deal with it in my office, but also in my personal life. My daughter ran up against a problem when she had her son about 3.5 years ago. Her babysitter, she wanted to have this babysitter who was really very good, and friends of theirs in their congregation had also hired the babysitter, but these friends did not immunize their children. And they had toddlers. And the babysitter was supposed to babysit the kids together. My daughter lost her babysitter because she refused. She would not allow her baby, who was too young to be immunized against measles, to be in the same place with children who were not immunized. It caused a major problem. My niece currently deals with that. They have friends who won't immunize their children. She stopped having their kids play together because she doesn't want her kids to get sick.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a big problem. And then what happens, of course, is in our office, up until about a year and a half ago, I was willing to accept patients who didn't immunize their children in the hopes that I could convince them into it and bring them forward into the 21st century. However, about a year and a half ago, my malpractice insurer sent out a notice saying, here's the story. If you accept unimmunized children into your practice, we will not cover any liability from it. I had to stop to think. Well, I have property liability insurance so that if a child who's not immunized comes in with one of the communicable diseases for which we do, and there is a child who's less than a year, for example, against measles, mumps, rubella, and etc., who's sitting in that waiting room and gets it, I not only have property liability, i.e. it happened at my house, so to speak, but I have malpractice liability. And now my malpractice insurer is telling me they won't insure me.
Wow.
I had to change the way our practice ran because my hand was being forced in one hand, and on the other hand, it made me stop and realize that I was exposing some of the kids in my practice, some of whom can't be immunized because they're immunodeficient, some of whom have been immunized but don't have immunity because they've had cancer and they had to be on chemotherapy. They're all over the place, a lot more than before. And that is a major issue. So what's happening is people are being so selfish that they're not thinking about the greater good. They aren't immunizing their kids because they don't believe in it, and they're putting our kids at risk.
Most people get their kids immunized. I mean, we have like some things for school, right, where you have to have X, Y, and Z vaccines before you can go to class. Because I know that I've gotten some.
Not in the state of California. In the state of California, all you have to do is put in a personal belief objection,
really?
And they let you go to school.
Because I remember getting, like, was it TB and I don't even remember. I just remember going to the doctor. It was like, oh, I have to get needles in me, but it was all part of.
Well,
it
yes,
was normal.
Most parents who are proper will do that, but those who don't believe in it will simply sign the personal objection statement and send their kids to our kids' schools anyway, and expose our kids.
No, wow, that's amazing. Is there a vaccine? Do kids get a vaccine for chickenpox?
Oh,
or
yes.
is that because when I was a kid, I remember people got chickenpox, and
that's right.
Well, we'll take a break. But I thought I had chicken. I was told I had chickenpox as a kid. Turns out I didn't. Yeah, guess what came back when I was in my adolescence? Shingles.
Not so good.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the truth is you probably did have chickenpox when you were a kid.
That's what my dad said. Well, I had one chicken pox on my butt.
You had it.
Yeah.
You had it because you can't get shingles without having.
Yeah, that's what. Okay. Well, all right, but we gotta wrap it up for now.
Okay, so we will be right back, and this is the Prima Pediatrics Healthcare Hour on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.